Hello and welcome to another edition of the AllMonster.com Monster Truck Podcast. We're going to be hitting you with a couple of episodes over the break. This one is going to break down the happenings that have been in the Monster Jam and Monster Truck world, as well as breaking down a few things we think you should look out for in the upcoming first quarter, the upcoming Monster Truck season. Then, in another episode, as you guys are enjoying your holiday gifts, we're going to answer some of your questions, comments, and everything from YouTube, Twitter, and elsewhere. If you guys would ever like to send us a more long-form message, email, anything like that, you can hit us up at dhart@allmonster.com or rhot@allmonster.com. So, all that being said, one of the two of us has been to a monster truck show recently, and I'm going to let you guess who that was. Hint, it's not me, Dustin. Hello, how have your shows been? What has your life been like? And I heard you were flown to a secret location to take pictures of a cool new monster truck.
I don't know about all that. But, I've been all over a little bit, it feels like. Things have kind of slowed down. I'm very bored sitting at home right now doing a ton of desk work here before first quarter gets rolling. But, so since we last had our podcast together, I'm still kind of trying to remember exactly when that was. But it's been a minute, and managed to make it up to Minneapolis, checked out the event out there at US Bank Stadium. Good time, plenty of good people. And then most recently, managed to make a quick trip up to see one Cole Venard and the brand new Black Pearl monster truck. Everybody, I think, now has probably seen it across social media. Launched the announcement of the truck yesterday as of December 19th, I guess it is right now. What day is it? I don't know. That's a good thing. I never know what day it is unless there's a monster truck show involved. That's how my life revolves. I'm not sure what that says about me. Probably a lot of horrible things, but
the same as the people that are listening, man. Yeah.
Yep. I had the chance to go and check out the truck yesterday. Cole invited me to come check it out, get some pictures of it, and shout out to Jamie and Deidre for always being super cool, treating me like family. They got a hold of Cole and were like, hey, send Dustin up there to go get some stuff for this truck. We need to have something to announce with it. So very cool to be one of the first people to take a look at the truck in its finished form. It's a fantastic piece, beautiful. Love the theme. I've always had a soft spot for pirate-themed stuff. As some of you throwback Monster Truck Madness 2 dorks, tell me where you've heard this before. Us talking about Monster Truck Madness 2.
Blackbeard. Blackbeard
yes.
is schizo for life. Anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. Black Pearl. What was his? Did you get to talk to him about the name? Any explanation for exactly what it is for those of us that may not be pirates?
No, didn't really get a chance to talk to him about the concept behind the truck, if you will. I think it's kind of natural in this part of the country here, located in an area where there is a ton of pirate history. For those that are not aware, Cole Venard is living around the Outer Banks of North Carolina, where I'm from. Outer Banks, North Carolina were notorious for pirates over the years, like Blackbeard.
So much for the secret location. Thanks a lot.
Well, my old Monster Truck Madness 2 truck back in the day was Blackbeard. There's plenty of pirate lore, though, around here, all kinds of history. My hometown is named in pirate lore. There's all kinds of, different pirate connections. So it was kind of really fitting that, the pirate theme kind of came about. And then, the truck looks really cool. It's got a lot of little intricate details within the wrap. Folks at AG Wraps up in Virginia Beach were the ones that came up with everything for it and did a wrap. The truck, as a lot of people probably noticed, it's pretty similar in construction to Overboard. Basically, everything that they have learned from Jamie Garner's truck over the last year or so, anything that they wanted to change, modify, adjust, whatever, they put it into the creation of this new piece. Cole Venard, as we've seen over the last couple of years, fantastic driver. He's been a wizard in the smaller arena setting, really hasn't had a whole lot of stadium time other than the World Finals. But he's getting right into it this year, going after it, 5 straight weekends of stadium action for him and Jamie Garner. It's going to be really interesting to see how he adapts on the fly, to A, a new truck, and B, into a little bit of a new environment. If his World Finals freestyle was any indication, he's pretty well at home and can adapt pretty quickly to the stadium environment. So, he's got a piece that is capable of going toe to toe with everybody and anybody. So, it'll be a lot of fun to see what Cole, how everything goes for first quarter, and it'll be fun to follow the results and see. Hey, maybe they get a shot at Vegas this year, whether it be Jamie or Cole or both.
I am on board after seeing, no pun intended, board. I am on board with seeing both of those trucks end up in Vegas. Jamie really impressed me. I believe that was St. Louis where he got the second place finish, completed the backflip. Outstanding, man. You can't ask for much more than good, clean, strong freestyle runs. I'm not taking anything away from the guys that are sitting there and, they have maybe a little more budget, no offense, rolling over, doing stuff like that. But there's nothing more like the one of my favorite freestyles of all time is Adam Anderson and Taz from World Finals 9. But the only bone that I have to pick with that freestyle is at the end, he made kind of a questionable hit and dumped the truck, rolled it over. But at the end of the day, he rolled that thing back over and was able to drive it into the trailer. And I thought that was the coolest thing. You went out there and had a great, clean freestyle run, didn't tear up any equipment, and you drove it back into the trailer. Like, I could see that happening with both Cole and with Jamie in first quarter. And that is a fearsome two-truck team. Independent style, too. So, crazy, crazy. I would love to see that happen in Vegas. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Speaking of Cole and his abilities behind the wheel, of course, was an outstanding crewman for a long time. And would really like to have him on the podcast to talk about things. So, hopefully there was some seeds planted as well as some pictures taken. What else did you get to talk to him about, if anything, while you were up there taking pictures?
Just kind of the general approach the first quarter this year. They've been working hard on both trucks. They've taken overboard completely down to the bare chassis, repowder coated. They've made some tweaks and adjustments so it'll match up even better with the new truck. Right now, they're in the process of reassembling everything. The front end was back into the truck as of yesterday. They're working on putting in some Lexan, stuff like that. Rebuilding the rear of the truck, eventually getting the motor and everything in the truck as well. It's kind of a tough time of year because everybody is, in their first quarter crunch, but also trying to do, family stuff with it being around the holiday season. I know Cole's heading out of town to go back home to South Dakota for a few days and get to see his family around Christmas. But then, once he gets back home, it is, all hands on deck, no pun intended, getting after it and getting both of those trucks 110% before they hit the road for first quarter. First show out is in Tampa, which is, always got some eyes and expectations around it. It's one of the longest running, stadium events in the country. You're in Feld Entertainment's backyard, if you will. Being there at Raymond James Stadium, there's a lot of eyes that go into that show, especially with it being one of the first stadium shows of the season.
Yeah, and just a quick story. I don't remember if I've told this on the podcast before, but I remember when Cole was a crew chief for the legend at the time, grave digger, the legend, Adam Anderson. Adam had an issue, I believe, with an axle between rounds of racing, and that was just when Monster Jam was starting to really crack down on how many people could be in the pits and what you could do between rounds and of course somewhat during rounds of racing. Basically, you got to get everybody off the floor or your truck has to go back to the tunnel to get stuff done to it. And I remember just being absolutely floored that Cole was able to swap everything out and get Adam running again in about it seemed like 15 minutes. I remember going up to him after the show and going, "Dude, that was an amazing job on that." I think it was Axel, and he just looked at me like, first of all, like, who are you? And second of all, thanks, man. Like, he was really, like, he meant it, and it was really cool to see that. He took pride in his work, is my point. And if he takes, he's going to take that same approach and that much more because he's going to be behind the wheel of one of them. And, of course, still has, the opportunity to do some great stuff for Jamie, too. I just see a lot of great things out of that. I think that Cole is, for lack of better words, really motivated. He took an Arena Series championship. already on his resume in just a few short years of driving. Been to Vegas, done all that stuff, and I think the fire burns within Cole to get back there. Somehow, this is a great start.
Yeah, absolutely. With Cole's current situation, he's trying to start a business at home and, get that off the ground and everything like that. So he won't be a 110%, full-time driver. You won't see Cole at all the summer events, but at least when it comes to this coming first quarter and, maybe some of the bigger Monster Jam events that come up after first quarter and maybe some of the bigger independent events and beyond, we may see Cole jumping in. But as I understand it right now, it'll be, kind of some split driver duty after first quarter, possibly seeing some different identities going onto that chassis. I believe Deidre even made mention that there would be a miss overboard body for that truck as well.
All right.
So, the team is definitely improving. Anytime Jamie Garner commits to something, he commits 110%. And there's no doubt when you look at that piece that they committed 110%. That's a first-class piece of equipment and something that's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year.
110%, man. All right. Anything else on Black Pearl you can divulge? Last chance. Cole, come on the podcast, man. Let's talk.
Nah, it's just going to be a fun thing to watch, man. I mean, to see somebody, go from such a position of prestige, if you will, in being a grave digger driver and then kind of changing gears and having a lot of things happen within life over the course of a year. He had stepped away from things and was thinking he was going to be away from monster trucks for a little while. And then suddenly, a really great opportunity comes about and, you get asked to drive a brand new piece of equipment from one of the best independent teams in the country. How do you turn it down? So, I want to wish Cole the absolute best of luck. I know he is super excited to, get behind the wheel and really showcase what he can do.
Absolutely, man. Awesome. Well, you were also at a show in Minneapolis earlier in the month, and of course that is the second year that we've had a Minneapolis show at the brand new stadium. So, quick thoughts, rundown maybe a little bit of your impressions from the show. I think by now everybody's pretty much gotten the results, but what did you see while you were there? We're trying to bring them some extra, you guys that are fans of burritos and slap wheelies aren't always a fan of the rundown of the results. You want to hear what went on in the pits, what went on in the background, and what impressions the first person view was. So what did you see out there?
They're not interested in the tortilla. They're interested in what's inside the burrito.
Oh, that analogy is A+. Guys, figure out a hashtag. I'm not going to do that multimedia crap, but come on, man. Give your boy a hashtag. Give Dustin a shout out for that one. Anyway, so what was in your burrito in Minneapolis?
It was a Carnage flavored burrito. Dude, I don't know if everybody else's general impression of the show was the same, but I was kind of surprised that some folks maybe kind of putting their brains in their back pocket and just going after it. Sometimes that works out pretty well. Sometimes not so much. We saw a little bit of both in Minneapolis. There was definitely a fair share of carnage. The two-wheel skills competition, there's still a lot of growing pains there, but there is a lot of brightness that I think is going to come from that. There's probably going to be plenty of follies for the low light reel coming out of the two-wheel competition for this coming first quarter as everybody's kind of getting used to trying some new and different stuff. But there's also going to be some pretty awesome highlights. We saw Lee O'Donnell really trying to work on the nose wheelie. First attempt went pretty well. Got it far enough past vertical, if you will, on the nose to more or less almost take the front clip off. And then the second time just got it a hair too far over. And, maybe if he had another 20 feet or so, he could have really stood in it to try and pull it back around, but it didn't quite work out. But that was pretty cool. Jude Kohler, an Avenger, kind of just decided to turn the contest on its head and just be like, hey, you know what? I'm not very good at this here, popper or moonwalky or, whatever, silly trick you want to kind of throw out there. Kohler's just like, you know what? I'm just going to go out there and do two really stupid good wheelies. And, they pulled that off. Corey Rummel and Rage tried to get himself a nice little bicycle going, but Truck got a little bit too far over, a little too fast. Truck carried a little bit too much momentum, and he found himself into a dump steer pretty quick. But it looked impressive, and the people in the crowd were pretty amped up about it. Um, but for the most part, there really weren't a ton of highlights, if you will. There was definitely a few rollovers, some things not working out quite so well. But I think that's just going to be something that's going to have to, you're just going to have to deal with some of the growing pains of it. It's a new competition, it's a new thought, and it's probably going to have some rough nights. But I think if Monster Jam is fully committed to it, and which it seems like they are, that there are going to be spectacular moments to come from this as everybody gets used to, just trying out some new stuff and getting out of their comfort zone to basically try and, pick up a competition win. It's going to be a huge part of the overall event standings and the whatever point series may, come about for this upcoming first quarter.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk involved and a lot of finesse involved as well, the impression that I got as well was you're asking a new driver, potentially, maybe some people that don't have as much experience, to hop into a stadium and not only to do the normal big stadium racing, big stadium freestyle, out of their comfort zone to begin with, but also, hey, I want you to take this 10, 12, 14,000 pound monster truck and I want you to just stand it on its nose for 15 seconds. Or I want you to do an amazing slap wheelie for all the way across the floor. Bring it down, not wreck it in the dumpster. Don't roll over. Don't break anything because we have other stuff in the show to do. That's a lot of pressure on a new driver. I think that's a lot to ask. To which much is given, much is earned, or whatever you say about that. But at the same time, man, that is a lot to take in. I think that's tough for the new drivers. We'll get into some of the new drivers and some of the new stuff either later on or in the other podcasts. A lot of people are asking about the new faces and the new things. But that was an impression for me, is that you're pushing everybody towards the top, Tyler and Adam and Ryan and Todd Leduc and Leo O'Donnell. The experience at the top is definitely the results at the top as well. So for a new person, that's a distinct disadvantage, and you don't get much practice time either.
No, but I think it's going to foster some really unique things to come about. I was talking with Tyler Menninger earlier, or not earlier, but a little while back, and he was already kind of saying, I got to come up with something else other than the walk and the wheelies or doing the moonwalks or whatever. I got to come up with something else because people are catching on. Everybody's going to start to try it because, okay, they see how much success I've been getting with being able to do this in the arena environment. It's starting to cross over into the stadiums with, what Ryan Anderson has done. Others are trying it. So, what are you going to do now that other people are kind of catching on to what you're doing to separate yourself from the pack and stay ahead of the curve? And that's going to be an interesting challenge because I'm kind of wondering what the heck else do you do?
Yeah.
But Tyler says he's got some stuff up his sleeves. He wasn't quite quick to reveal to me exactly what he was working on or what he was scheming up in his brain. But, the fact that he and Ryan and Adam and Kristen and a whole host of other monster truck drivers are all kind of clustered right around here on the Outer Banks, there's probably a lot of evil, maniacal ideas going around that are brewing about what in the heck these guys are going to continue to try and, push the sport further. Just think, Ryan and Tyler in the same room just scheming up ideas.
Yeah.
That's a terrifying thought for the rest of the world.
It's a terrifying thought for the crew guys. It's a terrifying thought for everybody involved. But it's that good fear, that intense, like, oh man, what a rush. Yeah, innovation, very important. I feel you. And I think when you're sitting here and you're talking about innovation, I'm thinking about motocross and freestyle motocross, and that, back in the day it was Metzger doing the backflip at the X Games, and then everybody did a backflip. Stop me if this sounds familiar. They're getting things down more. Like there's, I was talking about inexperience towards the newer end of the spectrum, but more and more people are hopping on the backflip train. More and more people are hopping on the moonwalk train. So what's next? Well, the innovators are the ones that are remembered. You remember Metzger was the first one to do the backflip. You remember, things like that. The trick is going to be to make this feel fresh after a couple of years of seeing backflips and moonwalks. Or, I hope that we don't get to a point where everybody goes, that's cool.
Yeah, well, oversaturation is such a thing. The freestyle motocross world can tell you that firsthand that, when you watched a run that, had six backflips out of a, 2-minute run or whatever, it starts to actually get a little bit stale after a while. I mean, like, okay, I've seen it, but what else are you going to do? And that's
The
when the
thing is,
bar.
it's like if it's that easy, why isn't everybody doing it? And if it's that easy, it's boring.
Yeah, and I think as times have progressed and everything like that. I mean, you look back just a few years ago, you weren't kind of guaranteed a truck would be able to stick a backflip because
Yeah.
drivers were still very new to it, and not every show was used to getting a backflip ramp. And then all of a sudden, about 2015, every show was getting a backflip ramp, but the ramps weren't always reliable. The drivers, didn't quite have it down pat as far as how they approached it. But within the last couple of years, it has become more and more of a certainty, if you will, that at least one side of a backflip ramp is going to be quality enough to pull it.
Yep.
And we've seen it. More shows, more often than not. Even in less than ideal conditions. I mean, we've seen it in mud shows. Out in Santa Clara. Ryan Anderson stuck one, or I think, or maybe one of the Tampa shows, whichever. But if these guys are willing to hit them in less than ideal conditions where there's next to nothing for traction and still go after it. I mean, Nashville a year ago, we had a rainstorm roll through right before showtime, and track wasn't in bad shape, but down by the backflip ramp, it was a section of the floor that really hadn't been run over during the course of the event. And then all of a sudden, a couple of drivers go out there and say, hey, you know what, we're going for it. And, Chuck Warner went after it, Scott Buto went after it, and they were massive, huge, arced out backflips. They didn't come back all the way around the way that they wanted to, but, you know, the ramp, carving and everything like that, as far as how they approach it and how they are getting these things to be so consistent, hats off to the dirt crew for really, taking their time and putting in the homework now to get it to where it is pretty reliable most show to show. But yeah, I think, part of that also kind of brings in a negative aspect in it, and that it's gotten a little bit easier for everybody else to figure out how to do it because it's that much more consistent and that much more reliable to expect how the ramp's going to be.
Yep.
So yeah, now you've got to kind of innovate a little bit and come up with a different approach to things. I've been to different events, and somebody says I don't really feel like I should have to do a backflip here this weekend. So and so is going to do one, so and so is going to do one, so I'm going out second to last or whatever. Why go out there and do something that everybody else has already done?
Yeah,
So
take a
I got to
look through
come up
the
with
order,
something else.
especially if you're on the back half of that field. Take a look through the order. Maybe your plan changes based on what the front half does. I can understand that.
Yeah, you kind of come in with a different strategy and then say, hey, you know what, maybe if everything else goes to plan and I find myself at the end of the floor there with 10 seconds left, all right, fine, I'll throw it. But, you know, after a while, if you've already had 6 or 7 backflips during the course of a show, it kind of starts to lose its luster.
Yeah.
And I think that definitely does kind of play into the mind of how you strategize things. We've seen plenty of amazing and spectacular freestyles go down without a backflip. I think some of the best freestyles that have ever happened have been without a backflip. So it's definitely, with it being fan judging, obviously I think having a backflip thrown into your repertoire and can definitely boost your scores. I mean, we've seen it more than once where it seems like, driver gets an overinflated score just because of a backflip. But, I think as things start to progress and the backflip kind of becomes more and more commonplace, it's going to continue to be more and more just like another move. It's going to be, yeah, it's obviously more risky than a slap wheelie, but, how much more difficult is it?
You mentioned Chuck Warner. I just want to mention Chuck Warner is one of my favorite drivers to watch. Please put Chuck Warner in a Maximum Destruction truck one day, guys. Besides that, he is one of the guys that has done or attempted the corkscrew or the 360 or whatever you would like to call it. In motocross, it's called a 360. In monster trucks, we either call it a corkscrew or a 360. Cam McQueen has attempted it twice. You could say he successfully made it, but also broke the truck. I think if somebody can get that down, maybe that's your next progression. Also takes a lot more finesse, a little bit more degree of difficulty than even a backflip. And you saw Warner hit it. You saw McQueen hit it. Those are awesome. I think that, we also saw Neil Elliott do the reverse backflip. that Lyle Hancock tried. Kind of a weird bookend, right? Lyle Hancock had said in Wrench Head he was going to try that over the big trailer at the first World Finals. And here we are at, almost 20 years later. And it was successfully done, albeit, it was Neil Elliott. He probably could have done it in a rear-engine truck or a mid-engine truck, but he did it in a front-engine truck. There are little inklings of what we're talking about happening, and I hope that things continue to progress that way, and the art of maneuvering a 14,000-pound, 12,000-pound, 10,000-pound monster truck in the air and returning it to safety continues to progress.
Yeah, and just to kind of continue on with how Minneapolis was, aside from some of the carnage factor that I was talking about earlier, there were some pretty spectacular moments. Todd Leduc's freestyle from start to finish was fantastic. Typical Todd Leduc run. I mean, that dude goes out there and gives it his all every time he hits the floor for freestyle. You know what you're going to get from Todd Leduc. It's going to be ragged edge. It's going to be big. There's going to be something wild throw in there. He's definitely one of those guys that's very good at the backflip, usually sticks them clean, is able to keep it rolling. So, just another fantastic run from Todd Leduc. Ryan Anderson was a little bit disappointed with his freestyle run just simply because I think he got into his mind that he had to go absolutely bonkers to try and top Todd Leduc's run, and just, went a little too big too soon. The jump trying to clear Max D obviously didn't work out because he landed right square on Max D. Not really the way that I think Ryan wanted that to go. And then I think he was probably just a little bit too amped up that the thing was still together after that happened.
Yeah.
And just found himself in a bad spot, cartwheeling the truck around.
What a rook, right? That's what Tyler Menegas said on Instagram. Apparently there's a joke going back and forth that Tyler and Ryan explained to each other over Instagram that apparently when a move like that is made and they do not come out the other side of it with all four wheels down, they tell each other, what a rook. What a rookie move, right? So apparently Tyler found it in his good heart to give Ryan the appropriate amount of crap for rolling the truck in Minneapolis. So Ryan responded on Instagram with, oh, so, you can see right here in this clip, it's Vegas, of a fan of Tyler's. Apparently you have to do the love you or rock sign with the index finger and the pinky
finger. You got to throw them the horns, man.
You have to throw the horns, and you have to throw them as close together as possible. So if you guys
old
see
school
Tyler,
Dio style.
If you guys see Tyler, just throw him the horns, and we'll be sure to do the same with him if he hops on the podcast. But yeah, apparently that was a rookie move according to Tyler.
Yeah, coming in from the top rope is not usually the way you want to approach a freestyle, but that happened, and it was definitely an interesting moment, that's for sure. I'm sure the boys in Paxton were probably not super stoked about that, but I think they totally understand what was happening. I don't think anybody thought Ryan was intentionally going to try and, just slam the truck. They definitely want to go all out to win, but Ryan, I think, has enough respect for everybody else's equipment to not purposely body slam anybody's truck. And then, the truck on the receiving end of it, Max D, Tom Mentz, had a pretty good run himself. Yeah. I felt like it was one of the more classic Max D runs that we've seen from Tom since he's come back from injury. Definitely had kind of a little bit of a throwback vibe to it. He was getting after it, going hard. Accidentally made contact with a couple of trucks as well, which was quite common in Tom's past freestyles. Just a tough deal with the amount of carnage that was littered across the floor there. And then that closing hit where he kind of went up to the side of the jackrabbit and just floored it. I thought maybe that thing might kick around enough to kind of half backflip, kind of like he did back in Stockholm.
Yeah,
I think it was back in like 2008, somewhere around then. Kind of reminded me of the kind of the McMintz hit, as it was called back when it happened in Baltimore in 2011 when he hit the side of the bus stack with a flat tire and the truck kind of kicked around and spun around. But it was pretty wild.
Throw it back to the Goldberg days. He always did that. It was, I think that is a signature, Mintz thing. Elliott took to doing that as well, Neil Elliott, and I love it, man. I wish more people would do that. I don't know if they're told not to do that, and Tom just says whatever, shut up. But either way, I love seeing that because it goes, I am not going to hit this track how you want me to hit this track. I see those cute, dirt ramps that are groomed so well, and I see your dirt ramps that are groomed so well, and I raise you a finger, and I hit this dirt ramp this way, how I want to, and I have no idea what's going to happen. That aggression, that's the Max D style, and I love seeing that, man. I wish more guys would cross the track up like that and just, at the end of the run, take a chance. I don't view that as dumping the truck. I view that as at the end you're taking a chance on something. It's one thing to, go into a donut and just do it until you roll over, or hit something sideways where you have no idea, that there's a 200% chance you're going to roll the truck over. It's another thing to cross this thing up from the side and go, all right, guys, let's see how this goes.
As Tom would say, sometimes you got to drive it like a 50-year-old man.
The professor's been doing good though. I don't want to use the term renaissance, but I think for a little while, I hesitate to say like mellowed out, but Tom calmed down a bit, just personality wise. It seemed like in his interviews, he had that quiet confidence thing going on for a while, and I think sitting out for a while got him fired up again. It just seems like now he's hit the track with a little bit extra.
Yeah, I think, first show out, he was kind of still feeling some things out in Foxborough, and then afterwards, he kept picking it up and turning up the wick a little bit more. With the way that Tom runs, some nights it's complete insanity. Other nights it's not so much fun because, kind of go out there and with Tom's style, it's all or nothing, and sometimes it's nothing.
Yeah.
You go a little bit too hard and you find yourself on your lid in a spot where you can't get all fours back to the ground. And, it's happened more than once that, Tom's gone out there and it's been a 30-second freestyle run. It usually ends spectacularly in that 30 seconds, but, when he does seem to be getting these full pull runs again, they're definitely notable.
Yeah.
Minneapolis was a pretty good freestyle run from him, I felt like.
Yeah. And, kind of, the professor reminding everybody who taught the class, right? He's maybe he's looked over and seen. I mean, this is just pure speculation, but hey, we're dorks. We like to do this. I think Tom realizes, okay, well, my running mate, my inspiration, my guy right beside me in the 50-year-old club is retired now. Tom's the old vet in the sport now, and I think he's carrying that flag pretty well. By the way, we should put flags back on the trucks for the winner of the prior event.
I think that would be really cool for the Stadium Series, or for any of these tours. Now that we're kind of having everything as a point series for each individual tour, mm-hmm. I would love to see that come back. Throw back to the old TNT days. And speaking of the 50-year-old club, it'd be a shame to not bring up Jim Kohler's ridiculous hit to close out his freestyle run a little earlier than he anticipated. Jim Kohler is always and forever going to be a madman. All you have to do is look at his freestyle run from Minneapolis.
You think Jim's confident with his equipment heading into first quarter?
Well, I mean, Kohler has always had complete faith in his truck being tough enough to take everything that he throws at it. I mean, we've seen some of the just absolute insane things that he's done. That new piece is fantastic. And when everything comes together for him and, nothing little and simple, no 10-cent park breakages on him, you got to watch out for old Kohler. And, he was definitely getting after it. That backsider of the step up, reminded me of the hit from, I think it's World Final 16 with the white Avenger body. Hit the backside of that one jump and
pick a World Finals, okay? It's just pick a World Final. You remember that one time when Kohler went huge? Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be a little bit more specific. There's only about 100 instances of Kohler going ridiculously huge, but yeah, the truck came down. It looked like maybe it was a little scary, at first, but the backside of the truck hit a little bit first. It wasn't a straight cage shot. Kohler pops out like nothing happened. And he's just, stoked. He's walking around the floor afterwards. He's like, hey, it's only parts. It happened. We got a while before first quarter. It's no biggie. he gave the green light to all four of the trucks. Hey, go out there and kill it. Do whatever. If you want to backflip it. You guys are the ones that are turning the wrenches and putting them back together. As long as it goes back together before your first show, I'm all for it. Just go
Yeah.
out there and have fun.
Hey, shouts to the young guns, no pun intended, in the Avenger camp. I see you, Corey Rummel. I see you, Mike Thompson. I see you. All of you doing an amazing job. And shouts to Mike as well. He does not know what to do with his hands, but he sure did know what to do with the truck there for a little while till it broke down on him. Man, that was impressive. I see great pieces in that camp. I'm glad they swapped some of the old iron out with some new iron, and having the go from Jim Kohler, that green light, with those bits of equipment and all of the experience in that camp on various other trucks and turning the wrenches. I mean, that's just like we were talking about with Cole earlier. These guys have great opportunities. They've worked their tails off, and now they get to run their tails off. That's a win. Those are all wins. Those are all good things, and I can't wait to see what they've got coming for us first quarter.
Oh yeah, I mean, Brad's been getting after it in the last, few months. I feel like he's really grown leaps and bounds with his driving. I think he's that much more comfortable. There's always been flashes of brilliance with Brad's driving.
Yeah.
I think, you go back and look at his freestyle run from Detroit, to close out the FS1 E series. It was a fantastic run. He's put together some big freestyles over the summer. He picked up a win in Edmonton the first night on the Throwdown shows in Edmonton. Ran really hard when we were at Bridgeport Speedway. Brought it into the fall Monster Jam shows. Really just kept getting after it. The show that one of the more recent shows, I think Houston, when he was running the Rod Ryan body, was a great freestyle from him.
Yeah.
And then, carried it over into Minneapolis. Maybe went a little too silly with I guess you can almost call it the gap jump or the Morgan Kane jump.
Yeah.
Since they pretty much thrown that ramp in there, I think after Morgan Kane, tried his cross from the jammer to the step up during the fall shows. He got a little bit too silly with that, and the truck paid the price for it. It was definitely beat up, but was putting together a good run. Corey didn't have the best night in the world. He was definitely disappointed, but he's got a great piece. It just happened to be one of those nights where the Gremlins found his way into his truck. He's got 5 more stadium events, this coming first quarter to get after it and turn some heads. He did a lot of that during first quarter this year. He's going to continue to do so. And then, as you were saying earlier, Mike Thompson doesn't know what to do with his hands. That was one of the best moments ever.
Thank you, guys, whoever's listening, for highlighting a driver's personality in an interview, and for letting them have some fun and not being uptight about things, man. That was so cool to see that highlighted everywhere, and to just everybody's in on the joke, and it's fun. There's nothing wrong with that. That was so cool.
Shout out to Scott Jordan, my boy Scott Jordan. He was very well aware of what was happening, and was able to play off of it a little bit, and because he picked up on it pretty quick. He had an idea, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
He figured out very quickly what Mike was doing, and that it wasn't just awkwardness. It was actually planned, to be his Ricky Bobby moment, or at least that was Mike Thompson's plan. I don't know if he let Scott Jordan in on it or not.
I mean, there's one thing, if he would have stripped down to his underwear and run around, that's not cool. But like doing that, that half the people in that stadium have seen the movie, and they were laughing, and that he made fans out of some of those people. I guarantee you, when he was in the autograph session and he was signing stuff afterwards, everybody went up to him and went, "Dude," and did the thing. Like, come on, man. That was awesome.
He was a social media sensation for one night, and he had 55,000 people in US Bank Stadium laughing, including myself. I was probably crying laughing like a complete fool.
Just outstanding. Outstanding. Love it so much.
But he might have stole the show, dude.
Yeah. I was going to say, is there anything else to talk about with Minneapolis besides Mike Thompson doing great things there, and personality-wise, definitely stealing things.
Great personalities, of course. You got to bring up Adam Anderson, racing victory, generally awesome dude. Another awesome freestyle from him. I don't think it got enough hype he finished third, but that was a really good freestyle run. Not knocking Scott Buto in any way, but I felt like Adam's run was better. Probably should have scored higher, but you're going to have that. Adam went out quite a bit later afterwards, and I think he also had to follow up Todd Leduc's run. So I could see why the scores maybe came in the way that they did. And Lindsey Wink put the truck into the finals. Two-wheel didn't go the way that he wanted. Slap wheelie kind of just rocked over and didn't go to plan, but another solid freestyle from Wink. But yeah, all in all, Minneapolis was a fun time. A little bit carnage-filled, a little crazy, but I think sometimes that's just going to happen with everybody knowing that it's their last show of the year. It's their last chance to let it all hang out, and also know that when it's all said and done with, they've got however many weeks left to get that truck back together and refresh for first quarter.
And to practice our backflips, Bryce Kenny. We had some good fun with that, man. I was able to talk with Bryce a little bit and discuss everything heading into Minneapolis. Wanted to throw this little tidbit your guys' way. He's super stoked to be on board again with the Great Clips people. They have renewed everything for Monster Jam. Lots of exciting stuff coming out of that camp. And you guys know, if you listen to the Bryce Kenny podcast that we had him on, he's a driven fellow. He's got a great mind for the sport, great mind for motorsports, and I'm excited to see what he can do after an impressive year in Mohawk Warrior. Now he gets to come back and do it again, and I'm excited to see what he's got going. He had some promising stuff going and a pretty good run going until the back flop. He told me afterwards that he's gonna work on that and took it all in stride. You know, sometimes you hit the timing a little wrong, and we talked about how they're easy at quotation marks, but nothing with a big truck is ever easy.
No, I mean, you know, it sometimes it goes, sometimes it doesn't, and not to quote Trailer Park Boys too directly there, but but yeah, sometimes that's the way she goes, boys. That's the way she goes. She didn't go. She did not go that time. I don't know if he just got the timing wrong with it, or you know,
he took it all in stride. He was on Instagram talking and saying, "Yeah, you know, I messed up a little bit on that one, didn't I, boys?" And you know, good humor, good personality, good dude. And
he'll have plenty of opportunities to, you know, get another idea at how to approach it. And I'm sure some others will be happy to share, you know, some tidbits as far as how to approach it in the future and be like, okay, here's what I saw, here's what I think you can adjust and do differently. And, you know, with that Stadium Tour 1, you know, lineup, he's got plenty of reliable people to kind of bounce ideas off of. And then, you know, he's going to be going up against some pretty good competition all season long. So there's going to be more opportunities for him to be able to jump in there and try it again and, you know, push himself to another level, which, you know, he seems that, you know, Monster Jam has faith and confidence in him so far that they've continued to put him in that truck, especially with another, you know, a renewal and an even bigger sponsorship deal with the folks at Great Clips. You know, they've shown some faith in him, and, you know, there's a lot of confidence, you know, in him to do great things in the future. I think he's definitely capable.
Hey, man, I'm excited any time that there is some, for lack of better words, big money sponsorship coming into the sport. And anytime that you can have a guy like Bryce get that backing, anytime that you can have monster trucks get that kind of backing, that's a win. I don't care if you have to put 18 Great Clips logos in every seat in the house. If they're backing the sport, none of this stuff runs without green. And I think it's great, man. You know, I'm excited that, you know, a company like that, I mean, I can go down the street 10 minutes and get a haircut from a Great Clips place. And most places can. It's a really good deal. The fact that that comes in after, you know, frankly, there's some NASCAR places losing sponsorships. And the fact that they would maybe leave a little support on the table from NASCAR and come over to Monster Jam, that says a lot. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, you know, there's a continuing, growing, I think, notice of the monster truck world. And there's a little bit of a change in the perception. I feel like it's getting, you know, there's still obviously a lot of that perception of it's dumb redneck hillbilly stuff, boys. Ew! But yeah. You know, I think there is a little bit more of a growing perception that it's a little bit more acceptable. It's not just toothless hillbillies and big jacked up trucks. There's more of an understanding that this is a wholesome, family friendly thing. It's exciting. There's some genuine, you know, skill and talent behind the wheel of these vehicles. It's not just crash them up, smash them up, crushing cars, man. You know, there's all kinds of, you know, different aspects of the sport that can appeal to people beyond just, oh, they crush cars. You don't even really see that much car crushing these days. However you feel about that, but there's a lot of different dynamics now. You've got something that can kind of appeal to everybody, and I think that says a lot to what Monster Jam has done, and the sport as a whole has done to kind of change perspectives.
100%, man. Well, that leads us into a lot of stuff for first quarter. So I don't know where to go because it's such a big, massive topic. I don't think we could possibly ever cover everything. Of course, there's a bajillion different promoters, a bajillion different things. We're usually Monster Jam centric because that's part of what we do. Dustin's going to be on a specific tour. I am actually going to, now that I'm settled out here on the West Coast, I'm going to attend a couple of shows myself, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I am 100% going to be in Oakland, California. If you see me, stop by and say hi. Probably Sacramento as well. But I think before we go any further, we did talk about the Kohler camp, and we did talk about some of these independents. One of the big changes this year is running Monster Jam bodies on some of the independent trucks. We would be remiss if we didn't discuss this. I know you guys would hit me in the comments if we didn't discuss this. I just spoke about how I don't care if you put 18 Great Clips logos on everything as long as there is money coming into the sport. I understand wanting to develop your identity. I understand as an independent that there's going to be half people that love this, half people that hate this, maybe more. I think depending on how the deal is cut, I'm not sure. Maybe you could shed some light on this. If somebody was to come up to me and say, hey, we want to run a Monster Mutt body on your truck, and we'll pay for however many Monster Mutt bodies you can wreck, I'd say, cool. I'm going to wreck that thing every weekend. You better order 12 Monster Mutt bodies if I have 12 shows. On the other hand, I can understand having your identity taken away from you and having this possibly go down the route of the BKT tires and have it be a requirement to run with us, if you will. So I can see both sides of this. I think that if you're an Avenger Camp guy and you can run another body and maybe that helps a little bit with cost, great. You've given the independents a little more cash to put in their pocket. If they're paying for everything, I'm not sure how I feel about it. What are your thoughts on the whole body thing before we get into the first quarter events we'll be attending and what we're seeing?
Well, I mean, to look at it from, say, the perspective of Monster Jam, you have all of these brands and identities already established, and you have expectations, I guess, if you will, of fans expecting to see a Monster Mutt, an El Toro Loco, a Scooby-Doo, a Zombie, etc. at every show. And in the past, you couldn't guarantee that because, well, there's only but so many company trucks to go around and only so many, people available to, fit the mold, if you will. So I get it. It's, why promote or why feature names that you don't own, or you don't have rights to, or you don't have merchandise in the stands for. So I think from a business perspective, it's kind of wise for them. It's probably going to add a lot of workload to the fiberglass folks, having to churn out that many more bodies before first quarter. But I think it makes sense strictly from a business perspective. Now, for me as a fan, it's kind of disappointing that there's not as much uniqueness, I guess you could say, from show to show, because now just about every show is going to have a Scooby-Doo, a Monster Mutt this, an El Toro Loco that, or whatever of the repeating chains of brands and names. But I get it. I get it. It's just there are certain names and connections that you're just kind of used to. You're used to seeing a Brad Allen in Brutus, or
Hey man, let's talk about what we were just talking about with Mike Thompson. The dude made a connection with those 50,000, and they're gonna go, that was the dude that drove Wrecking Crew. Where's Wrecking Crew first quarter?
Nowhere.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
And there's that disconnect. So I can understand you want to market names, but now they don't see Wrecking Crew until April.
Yeah. And it's it's one of those weird deals there that, some drivers have already kind of established a name and a recognition and a connection, um, with a certain truck. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, did you change teams or something? No, it's still the same team. We just, we threw one of their bodies on and, we're representing their brand, but, it's still our piece. It's kind of hard to explain to the common fan that's maybe not a passionate monster truck follower. They maybe don't get it, but,
Yeah.
it's, it can be beneficial to Monster Jam. It can be beneficial to the independents as well. I, being the nerdy curmudgeon that I am, I'm kind of like, grumble. I don't really like the idea of, everything being so homogenized, I guess.
Yeah.
But I understand it. I mean, it does make good business sense for Monster Jam.
If it makes good business sense for both parties, that's my sticking point. Is if they're getting, the independents are getting either some extra cash in their pocket or free bodies, even, okay, I get it. I get why you would do that. There are those that would say, you sold out or whatever. At a certain point, some people run this show as an independent, and they're cool if they break even. At a certain point, some people have to depend on this to put dinner on the table. I think that it depends on your own situation. I think it depends on if it's a good deal for you. After that, we can argue technicalities.
Yeah, and I think, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if we see this growing even further into the future, that, more and more of the independent side of the world is going to be running, Monster Jam identities for, Monster Jam events. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if we see, a majority of the independents, which I think we're probably close to now, running, Monster Jam identities. It just makes good business sense for Monster Jam to continue to have their branding and their identities, in every event. And, if you can go to the merch stand and get a zombie or an El Toro Loco or a Scooby-Doo or a Monster Mod or, insert brand name here, you can go and get that merch and then see it right down there on the floor. People are going to make that connection that much easier. People want to go see, whatever, identity that they've come to follow.
Yeah.
There's probably more than enough times that you can go on to social media and see, an event posting that says, hey, come to Detroit or whatever, and be like, oh, I really want to see Scooby-Doo. Well, there's only but so many Scooby-Doos, and there's not a Scooby-Doo at this show. Well, now they've really increased the likelihood that, hey, if you're going to go to a show, you're going to see a Scooby-Doo or, insert brand name here.
Yeah.
So, you've kind of taken that out of the equation, if you will.
The other aspect is, just to touch on it real quick before we move to the first quarter stuff and then wrap this puppy up, no pun intended, is that is kind of a vote of confidence from Monster Jam, I think, if they were to ask you to run a body, because they are asking you to represent their brand, or the Scooby-Doo brand, or the Monster Mutt brand, or whatever the case may be. That's another way to look at it. Just trying to cover all the angles here, be unbiased. That could be looked at as a vote of confidence. Hey, we trust you with this name that, these guys have built up. Everybody from Bobby Z to everybody in between, that's run a Monster Mutt, or a Scooby-Doo, or any of those. They're trusting you with the brand, and they don't have as much control over you as maybe they would over their own company trucks. So, I mean, that's another way to look at it. There's a lot of things to unpack there. I think we did a pretty good job there, though.
Yeah, looking in ahead, to first quarter, and you were, kind of bringing up the vote of confidence, and one name that kind of came to mind, and I was scrolling through Instagram before we got rolling through this, was Travis Mowry, and the vote of confidence that he got to not only, be elevated into kind of the stadium tour environment in his first, after just 1 year of driving with Tim Mente's operation, but for those that may not have noticed, Mente's operation actually went down to South America to run with some of the Monster Jam events that they've had down in Santiago, Chile, and Sao Paulo, Brazil, most recently. And, Travis, in his very first stadium show, I believe, if not his first stadium show, his first Monster Jam stadium show, went out there and threw down a pretty awesome freestyle run with the NEA body on his chassis, did a really great job. And that's somebody that, again, you kind of get that vote of confidence in that, they've, put their, they've got him driving in a big stadium tour this coming season, and they're, having him behind the wheel of one of their identities as well. That's a guy that, is super passionate about monster trucks and has been for a long time. For those that don't know Travis's background, his father briefly owned the Wild Hair truck. They campaigned it for a few years before getting out of it, but after that, Travis stayed super passionate about the sport. He was always involved in RCs and, all over with that. He dabbled a little bit in motocross, but he was always really dedicated to being involved with monster trucks. Spent a little bit of time working with the Sudden Impact camp, and then found himself as a full-time crew chief over with Monster Jam, turning wrenches on Todd Leduc's equipment, and then eventually on the Matt Byton's truck before kind of stepping away from Monster Jam due to some things back home, and found himself in the opportunity to drive for Mente. And I think the future is bright for a guy like him. And then he's running with Steve Thompson, and Steve's proven himself to be a very good driver as well.
Love seeing great stuff out of the Mente camp. Love to talk to any of the three of them and discuss the world at large. Monster trucks. Good to see a guy come from the humble beginnings and make it all the way through. So yeah, real excited to see that. I'm segueing this a little bit into the shows that I'm going to be at, because everybody can check their own personal schedules. Like I said, I got Oakland coming up in mid-February, and then before that, I've got Sacramento in mid-January. So I'll get to see two distinctly different shows, at least by most accountings anyway. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to seeing this and taking some pictures for you guys up on the website, allmonster.com. Dust has been holding down the photos, and I think it's about time I dust the old camera off and get some stuff going and give you guys, of course, some podcasts in between that during first quarter, our impressions. And I'm excited, man. I'm going to get to see, everybody from, the growth guys to Cynthia Gauthier to Tristan England, Bernard Light, Castro, Kristen Anderson, Camden Murphy. I mean, there's some exciting young names in there, and get to see them in Sacramento. And then we go to the veteran, a little more veteran lineup. We will get to see Pirates Curse, Corey Rummel edition. We were talking about the bodies, Scooby-Doo with Mike Thompson. Then, of course, some of the young guns are in there too. We got Rosalie Raymer in Wildflower. That's definitely been a name that's been on the up and up. And then the Overboard, and I'm assuming Black Pearl combination will be there as well. And then, of course, there's these couple of guys, may have heard of them before, Charlie Pauken and Tom Mintz. So they will be there for a couple of stadium shows in Oakland. So I'm really excited to see how all of that turns out. I think it's going to be interesting to have that perspective of an arena show and a stadium show and see similarities and the differences in the modern times in 2018. See what's being marketed, see what's being shown. Unpack that burrito a little bit, Dustin.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you were talking about some of the fresh faces and stuff like that that's coming through Oakland. If I'm not mistaken, I believe, and I'm double checking now to be sure because I don't want to talk out of my backside here, and I think I may be wrong. I thought that the young Swanson was going to be on that tour. I think maybe he got switched out. I'm not 100% sure.
Eric Swanson.
Is he on there? I'm probably clicking around in the wrong things, but that's what you get when you're unprepared, kids.
Obsessed.
Stay in school, study hard.
Eat burritos, watch slap wheelies, and do your homework, darn it. Obsessed, driven by Eric Swanson, is a part of the lineup according to Monster Jam's website.
Yeah. As always, kids, subject to change.
Yes.
In the event that suddenly becomes different before this thing gets released over the next day or so. Eric Swanson's, continue to improve as a driver, coming out with another new piece from that team. He's been fun to watch. The kid's not afraid to get after it and go big. He's got a couple of freestyle wins under his belt. He's thrown a couple of backflips, put himself into the Double Down Showdown finals this year. He's a good driver, second generation guy that's lived it and breathed it. And then, speaking of second generation, same thing with that tour. Colt Stevens bringing out the brand new Brodozer. There's obviously some questions kind of lingering about how the diesel is going to do, but, they're putting that thing on a big stadium tour. I'm pretty sure they feel pretty confident in what that thing is going to be capable of doing and that it's going to be 110% competitive. There's going to be eyes on it because it's associated with the Diesel brothers. And, Colt has proven himself to be a fantastic driver. You just look down to Sao Paulo this past weekend. He got elevated into driving Max D for the occasion and did a fantastic job, represented the team well, put down a fantastic freestyle. He's a fun driver to watch.
He's growing the beard out. I see you, Colt. Go living the gimmick. That's good. He's also he's driving that thing like he's still driving. What was the name of that truck? Had the terrible entrance music and.
Are you saying the one that was kind of like dark and mysterious?
Yeah. It looked like really
like a Darth Vader almost looking helmet.
That's right. Yeah. So he's driving it like that thing, and
that tick thing.
Yeah, and it looks like he has no fear behind the wheel. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I'm excited to see what he can do with that. Definitely after seeing the Diesel brothers test the trucks, I know they're not scared. I know Colt's not scared. It's going to be a very competitive tour. Of course, we'll get to see Uncle Mark. Mark Schrader's out there as well. Chuck Werner, we're just discussing him. Jolly, there's no slouching in this field. Budo is in it. Rummel is in it. And you just top to bottom, I see excitement and a 2-day stadium deal. Yeah, I'm gonna take a lot of pictures, man, and it's gonna have a lot of cool stuff to talk about when we're to that point. I think by mid-February, pretty much everybody's gonna have their stuff dialed in and rock it out. Oakland's a fun show. Haven't been able to attend a show in Oakland, so you guys know we did the Midwest thing in the Carolinas area. Now AllMonster expands to the West Coast, and more than just a couple people. We used to have Eric Myers, a couple other guys come out there and take photos. Now you get to see what I see in the stadiums on the West Coast.
Yeah, myself, I'll end up on the left coast there a few different times this year following Stadium Tour 1. I've blathered enough about how much awesomeness is packed into that lineup, so I'm not going to ramble too much, but anytime you have the likes of Adam Anderson, Todd Leduc, Neil Elliott, Jim Kohler, Steve Sims, Brian Wright, Bryce Kenny, Shane England, Brad Allen, Brianna Mahan, I don't know how many of them I just missed on that Matt Pagliarulo, J.R. McNeil, Roy Pridgeon. It's a killer lineup. That's going to be fun to watch all year long. I've blathered enough about it before in past podcasts, but it's going to be an exciting tour to watch. Looking around at some of the others, there's plenty of awesome competition to go down and around on some of the other stadium tours. I'm looking at Ryan Anderson, and Lee O'Donnell are going to be going head to head all first quarter long. You've got Overkill Evolution, Mike Vauders a second. He's somebody that can go in there and kind of give those guys, a good run for their money. That truck, when it's on kill, is very tough to beat, especially in freestyle. Mikey is an animal behind the wheels in freestyle.
Yes.
He's one of those guys that can really give Ryan Anderson a run for his money. He may not be doing moonwalks and all that, but when it comes to just pure, raw, badass freestyleness with big air and momentum and crazy jumps and backflips and whatever, Mikey Vauders is one of those guys that can hold his own against somebody like Ryan Anderson.
He is not scared. I'm also looking at a few lineups, and how about seeing Tyler Menninga, Colton Eichelberger, and Bari Musauer facing off in arenas every weekend? I am jealous of that tour. There's a lot there to talk about. We need to get Bari back at the stadiums. Don't get me wrong here. It is outstanding to me that there are point series. It is outstanding to me that they keep track of these things and that progression has happened. On the other hand, part of me goes, I would really like to see them mix up some of the stadiums and the arenas, make it a little more, for lack of better words, either regional or make it a little easier on some of these guys to make the trips that they're making. And then on top of that, like I said, mix up the stadiums and the arenas. The true champion, the true amazing driver, guys like Bari Musauer, guys like Cody Saucier, some of those guys, you put them anywhere and they're gonna be right up there at the top. Only stadiums or only arenas does not a 10 out of 10 monster truck driver make. I think that if you look at that, maybe mix these up a little bit. Maybe I'm living in Fantasyland, Dream World, probably. But I would love to see Bari go from an arena, getting the wheelie contest victory, to a stadium competing for the racing championship and everything in between. So much talent there. You can't confine that in an arena or a stadium. Put them in both. Mix it up.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of mentioned, that trio kind of going head to head. That was kind of what it was supposed to be last year before Tom got injured and then Colton had to jump up and fill the void. That is going to be an exciting trio to watch throughout first quarter. Those guys are going to go to war. It's all very friendly rivalries, but they're going to get after it. Those guys are all super competitive and are going to go all out to try and, bring home another title. They all want to be in Vegas. Again, kind of to bounce off of your point and wanting to see, that level of talent, get some stadium time. Colton Eichelberger proved that he is definitely capable of going back and forth. I mean, you look at some of the freestyle runs that he put down during his time on the FS1 East series before he was going back and forth to the Arena series. Tyler's freestyle run in Vegas was spectacular. Bari's proven that he's great in the stadium environment as well. But yeah, I'm with you. I want to see, some of these names and faces that are, honing their skills primarily inside of arenas and really not getting any stadium time to get a shot and really get to show what they can do outside of a hockey arena. Take them away from the dashers, let them open things up a little bit and, showcase their abilities.
100%, man. Well, there's a lot of stuff to talk about for first quarter and a lot of questions coming in from you guys about that as we're getting into sort of that final crunch before we start crunching things. First quarter is going to be cool, lots of excitement, and if you don't have anything else, we're going to save the rest of that for the part 2 that isn't called part 2. The next podcast, we take your questions, your comments, everything from there. We're going to be recording these back to back, so you can't send something in now. But if you want to for maybe a third edition, feel free. You can follow us on Twitter. It's the AllMonster. Of course, here on YouTube, it is AllMonster Videos. You can subscribe on iTunes. All of the social medias, man. And, of course, it's allmonster.com. Dustin, any final thoughts before we move into the user questions, the viewer, watcher, listener, Monster Truck Nerd questions?
Shout out to fellow Monster Truck Nerd. I don't believe we've discussed this on the most recent podcast, but good friend of ours, Christian Norman. He's been piloting one of Jimmy Creedon's pieces for the summer shows.
Yes.
Recently made the move over to the Bigfoot camp and is going to be driving one of the trucks over there. I think they're still kind of trying to figure out everything over on that side of the world as far as who's driving what this coming year. But look forward to Christian doing some big things over there. Fantastic dude, somebody that is incredibly passionate about monster trucks, lives it, sleeps it, breathes it, eats it. He's been a good friend of mine for a long time, but good friend of the site. One of those guys that just truly loves this stuff. And so for him to be able to go over and find himself a new home with the Bigfoot camp, I see great things happening there. He's somebody that can really help them grow things to another level. And really excited to see what Christian can bring to the table for the Bigfoot camp.
100%. Good call, man. Absolutely a great way to end this thing off. Congratulations to Christian and the entire Bigfoot operation, man. Great to see you guys doing that big thing out there, and wish you the best of luck during first quarter. So, we'll be talking about first quarter and a bunch of other stuff in the next podcast. For right now, encouraging you to subscribe here on YouTube as well as on all the social medias. Follow, subscribe. You guys know what to do. It's on the screen. And thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next one. Peace.